Rajaraman from MGM Healthcare under the guidance of Dr. Deepa Iso, Dr. Rajkumar, Dr. Anita, and Dr. Aravind, the PICU team. I'm here to discuss about a 12-year-old girl known case of Prader-Willi syndrome who presented with status epilepticus on the 19th of April 2021 to MGM Healthcare. There has been a history of fever for 2 days, no other associated symptoms. There has been a history of multiple orthopedic surgeries in both lower limbs in the past. Antenatal history: she's a first child to non-consanguineous parents, preterm, at 36 weeks, weight 2.5 kg at birth. There's been an NICU admission for 10 days for respiratory distress. There has been history of floppiness in infancy. Developmental history: there is a history of delayed motor milestones. She is currently studying in the 7th standard and has been able to get pass grades in her exam. There has been a history of temper tantrums, hyperphagia. She has been immunized up to date. So on arrival to the emergency, oxygen was given through 8 liters through face mask. Respiratory system showed bilateral air entry with scattered bilateral crepitation. She was tachypneic. Her saturations were 85 to 90 in room air and 100% in 8 liters of oxygen. Her cardiac system was normal. She was in a status when she came to us. Her pupils were equally reacting to light. Glasgow Coma score was 9 by 15. Concomitant CBG value was 136 milligram per deciliter. She was afebrile with no rash and temperature was 98.8. No neurocutaneous markers seen. Her weight was 70 kg, which was more than the 97th centile, and her height was 120 centimeters, less than the 3rd centile. In the accident and emergency department, IV lorazepam was given, followed by a loading dose of IV phenytoin, after which the seizures responded. CT brain was done, which showed no obvious abnormality. Brachycephaly was noted. CT chest showed bilateral changes in both the lungs, suggestive of bacterial pneumonia. Her COVID RT-PCR was negative, and she was further admitted into the ICU. Local examination on her left knee. There was a swelling present around the knee joint. There was a surgical scar healed by primary intention with a discharging sinus. Warmth was present over the knee joint. The range of movement was 10 to 40 degree. Distal pulses were felt. Ankle and hip movements were normal. The right knee had a previous surgical scar. To get a better understanding about the case, let's look at the timeline. She was diagnosed on Jan 2019 with Prader-Willi syndrome, was diagnosed with bilateral Blount's disease in July 2019, for which hemi-elevation of right tibia was done, followed by hemi-elevation of the left tibia in November 2019. In February 2021, she presented to a private hospital with difficulty in walking. She underwent proximal medial tibial plateau elevation with diaphyseal valgus derotation osteotomy of the left tibia. You can see the implant in the X-ray over here, which was taken immediately post-operatively. So 2 weeks after surgery, at review, she presented with pus discharge from the operated site. The collection was drained and she was started on oral taxane. Pus culture was not done. Later, on 16th of March, discharge was still present. Wound culture was sent. She was started on oral cefuroxime and ciprofloxacin. This was continued up till 23rd of March. Later, on 3rd of April, wound culture showed Pseudomonas aeruginosa, for which injection piperacillin tazobactam and injection amikacin were given on OPD basis. On the 3rd, if you can notice, the implant has become unstable. On the 10th of April, she was still continued on injection piptas. On the 17th, discharge was still found to be there. Hence, aspirated joint culture was taken. And she was continued on injection piptas and oral ciprofloxacin. On the 19th of April, she presented to MGM with status epilepticus and fever for 2 days. COVID RT-PCR was negative. So what did we think about? We initially thought about meningitis. We thought about cerebrovascular accident. We thought if the seizure could be drug-induced or a fever-triggered seizure in a child with Prader-Willi syndrome who has a low seizure threshold. Pertaining to pneumonia, we were thinking of COVID-19 pneumonia owing to a pandemic, a possibility of community-acquired pneumonia and aspiration pneumonitis. So this is a child with Prader-Willi syndrome who is obese, who developed bilateral Blount's disease that ended up in a post-op complication. Was it osteomyelitis? She also had obstructive sleep apnea probable. So blood investigation showed elevated C-reactive protein. Her D-dimer was elevated. Her liver functions were deranged. COVID RT-PCR was negative and COVID antibody was also negative. So management for seizures, neurological consult was obtained who advised to continue IV levetiracetam that was later changed to oral formulation. MRI brain, MRA and MRV were done that revealed no features of meningitis or cerebrovascular accident. LP was considered initially, but since the imaging was normal with a dramatic improvement in her sensorium, it was not done. EEG done was within normal limits. Pertaining to her pneumonia and sepsis, intravenous meropenem was initially started because she was already on broad spectrum antibiotics earlier. And later, after the report, IV vancomycin was added. Low molecular weight heparin. Since she was non ambulant, obese, with sepsis with high D dimer, suspecting a high risk of DVT, low molecular weight heparin was started. This was to be continued until she is ambulant. Echo was done, mild, which showed mildly dilated right atrium and right ventricle with mild PAH, thinned out atrial septum with no shunt, with good biventricular function. There was no evidence of vegetation. Since she was a frequent snorer with dip in saturation during sleep, a pulmonologist consult was obtained to see if CPAP would help her during sleep. So preliminary sleep study was done that was normal. And he also advised to do a detailed study later during review. So late the joint aspirate culture, which was done during review in her previous hospital visit, came to us on the second day after admission to MGM Healthcare that showed MRSA growth. This was sensitive to clindamycin, vancomycin, teicoplanin, and linezolid. So we took an infectious disease consult who advised antibiotics to be modified to IV teicoplanin and oral rifampicin since the implant was still in place to cover the biofilm penetration. She also asked us to get an ortho opinion if the implant to be retained or to be removed. So an MRI knee was done. This is an axial section of the MRI knee. As you can see, there is a sinus tract in the anterolateral aspect. It extends from the skin into the soft tissue. In the center is the implant, which is surrounded by marrow edema, and there is a posterolateral fracture fragment. So these are features suggestive of osteomyelitis. An orthopedician consult was obtained who advised implant removal. Hence, wound debridement with implant removal with VAC application was done on the 24th of April 2021. This is an X-ray after the implant removal. As you can see, there is no implant here and a vacuum is applied here to drain the excess fluid. So she was sent home on 26th of April with the following: tablet linezolid, rifampicin, Levipil, and enoxaparin. So what is my final diagnosis? So she is a child with Prader-Willi syndrome who is obese, developed bilateral Blount's disease, ended up in a post-op complication that is osteomyelitis of the left proximal tibia that grew MRSA. She also had bilateral pneumonia and her seizure could be attributed to probably an antibiotic-induced seizure or the beginning of a seizure disorder. She also had obstructive sleep apnea for which detailed study is to be done during review. So she came to us back in review. Her surgical scar was healing very well. There was mild swelling, but no warmth and tenderness. And her knee movements were painful. She had no further seizure episodes. So my main point of discussion here is about MRSA osteoarticular infection. Why? It is a significant cause of morbidity worldwide due to its potentially serious sequelae that includes growth plate damage, limb shortening, limb deformity, femoral head avascular necrosis, joint stiffness, and osteonecrosis. Around 15 to 50% of the pediatric osteoarticular infections are a combination involving both the bone and joint. And as many as 50% of the children with MRSA osteoarticular infection have accompanying bacteremia. Panton-Valentine lucerne toxin Staphylo aureus has also linked with thrombotic and embolic complications like DVT, suppurative thrombophlebitis, and pulmonary septic embolism. Disseminated MRSA infections with sepsis can have high mortality. Investigation. The first line of investigation should include a CBC CRP blood culture, deep tissue culture, and they have 98% sensitivity in diagnosing osteoarticular infection. The recommended imaging diagnostic method of choice is MRI. The IDSA practical guidelines gives us vancomycin, clindamycin. So these are the initial first line drugs and they can be continued for 4 to 6 weeks in patients with osteomyelitis. Alternative drugs are daptomycin and linezolid. So this is a major point of discussion where in my case, the child had an unstable implant. She presented to us with more than 2 weeks and hence prompt debridement with implant removal was done. Wherein if she had presented earlier and if her implant had been stable, we could have saved the implant. And that is the take home message that I would say. Early detection of this infection could have probably saved her the implant and prompt treatment with appropriate antibiotics. Thank you so much.